Savannah Rodas was 42 years old. Her eyes were a soft brown, the kind that had learned how to hide years of quiet pain. Her body didn't match the harsh, narrow beauty rules of the East Coast elite that her family name had forced her into. As a black woman from an old-money family, she stood out, not because of her wealth, but because of her calm grace and the way she listened to people, as if everyone mattered and every story deserved respect. Behind her back, though, the same people who applauded her charity work mocked her cruelly. They called her the fat heiress. Her husband, Marcus Sterling, was among them. That morning, their mansion in Greenwich, Connecticut smelled of fresh jasmine and expensive coffee. It was Marcus's birthday. A private chef had prepared a special brunch, and Savannah had personally ordered fresh flowers to decorate the living room. She had chosen a luxury Rolex watch she knew he wanted, not because he cared about time, but because the brand would shine on his wrist in campaign photos. Marcus was 7 years younger than her, an ambitious politician. In public, he was charming and confident. In private, he was cold and distant. His eyes were always calculating, like a hunter planning his next move. They had been married for 10 years. No children. No scandals. No love. Sometimes Savannah wondered if love had ever truly existed between them, or if she had imagined it, like dreaming about a beach house that never gets built. At exactly 10:16 a.m., Savannah walked down the grand staircase holding an envelope. Inside was a certificate showing a $100,000 donation made in Marcus's name to a National Children's Foundation. She thought it would please him. He loved looking generous. Even more, he loved the praise it brought him online. The dining room was empty, but voices drifted in from the nearby parlor. Out of habit, Savannah stopped and stood still behind the slightly open door. Then she heard it. "That fat cow disgusts me, Mom," Marcus said, laughing. "I only care about her money." "Did you really think I enjoyed sleeping with her?" Savannah forgot how to breathe. Her mother-in-law, Evelyn Sterling, didn't sound surprised. Her voice was calm, almost casual. "At least pretend, Marcus. Do it until you inherit everything. After that, you know what to do. That woman's time in your life is limited. You don't want to be tied to a body like that forever, an inflated bag of regrets." They laughed easily, like people who felt no shame at all. Savannah swallowed. The envelope slipped from her hand without a sound. Her face stayed still, but her legs shook slightly, as if the world had suddenly sped up. She held herself together. Slowly, she stepped back, climbed the stairs without making a sound, and quietly closed her bedroom door behind her, as if nothing had happened. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She didn't confront them. That night, they had dinner together. Savannah smiled warmly and handed Marcus his gift. He thanked her with a dry kiss on the cheek and fake excitement. Evelyn commented on how good the wine was and casually suggested Savannah try a friend's diet. Everyone laughed, except Savannah. She simply watched them, her calm not born from peace, but from resolve. After midnight, Marcus slept deeply in the master bedroom while Savannah walked barefoot through the house. She looked at everything, the art she had chosen, the furniture imported from Italy, the grand piano she never learned to play. Every item felt like a witness to a life that had never truly been hers. The house was a museum built for someone else, a mold that had been slowly suffocating her for years. In the study, she took out a sheet of paper and wrote steadily. "Thanks for showing your true colors." She didn't sign it. Then she opened her laptop. Within an hour, she contacted a discreet real estate broker and a foreign buyer. She transferred most of her fortune into a Swiss account under a new identity. She had managed her family's wealth for years, she knew exactly how to move money without leaving traces. By 5 in the morning, the mansion was behind her. No servants saw her leave. She carried only a backpack, a long coat, her passport, and a photo of herself at 18, the girl who once dreamed of traveling the world before the Sterling name turned her into a trophy wife. 2 hours later, Marcus woke up. He called for Savannah, confused. He searched the kitchen, the garden, the bathrooms. Finally, he found only a piece of paper on his pillow. "Thanks for showing your true colors." He crushed it in his hand, irritated and puzzled. He never imagined she had heard everything. He assumed it was a tantrum, emotional nonsense. He called her phone. It was off. He sent messages. No reply. He called his mother. "Where's Savannah?" "Why are you asking me?" Evelyn replied. "She left. Just left a note." "What does it say?" "Thanks for showing your true colors." For the first time, Evelyn felt a chill. Later that day, Marcus discovered the mansion had been sold. The money had been wired directly to the Swiss account. He couldn't touch it. Legally, everything belonged to Savannah, even his suits. What Marcus didn't know was that the media storm was already forming. The bank involved had accidentally leaked information to a financial reporter investigating Marcus for corruption. It was only days before the scandal would explode on national television. Meanwhile, Savannah sat quietly on a city bus heading toward Chicago's South Shore neighborhood, somewhere no one knew her. She looked out the window, calm and steady. Inside her coat pocket, she held her old photo like a charm. For the first time in years, she breathed freely. She had no clear plan, no final destination. Only one purpose: to begin again from nothing, and finally learn her true worth. That evening, the news reported. The wife of rising political figure Marcus Sterling has disappeared. Rumors suggest she sold their mansion and emptied her accounts. Some claim kidnapping, others a marital scandal. No one knew the truth, but she did. She knew the real kidnapping had been her entire life. She knew that a marriage built on contempt would never hold power over her again. And she knew that soon the world would meet a woman once mocked and dismissed, now ready to prove that nothing is stronger than a woman who no longer needs anyone to lift her up. No one imagined that behind her quiet smile lived a truth greater than betrayal. Savannah Rodas hadn't run away. She had awakened. The bus moved slowly through dusty streets, the windows fogged with damp morning air. Her backpack rested on her lap as the city unfolded ahead of her. Inside the backpack there were no jewels, no designer clothes, no expensive perfumes. Only documents, some cash, a notebook filled with short phrases she had written on nights when her chest felt too tight to hold her tears. And there was that faded photograph from her youth, her standing by the ocean, arms wide open, as if the whole world belonged to her. Back then, she hadn't met Marcus yet. Back then, she hadn't become the polished shadow of a fake life. The bus screeched to a stop. The driver glanced back without interest and said in a rough voice, "South Shore. Last stop." Savannah stood up. No one looked at her. No one recognized the woman who, just 2 days earlier, had appeared on the covers of fashion magazines and glossy charity spreads. Here, she was invisible. And for the first time, that invisibility felt like relief. She eventually walked into a small community health center. The paint outside was peeling. Inside, there were rusty exam tables, broken plastic chairs, and a makeshift reception desk built from stacked cardboard boxes. A woman was arguing with a young man. "I already told you, we don't have that antibiotic," he said. "And if you buy it elsewhere, I can't guarantee it's real." The voice belonged to a tall man with messy brown hair, rolled-up sleeves, and dark circles that spoke of sleepless nights. His eyes carried sadness, but his voice was steady, firm, yet kind. Savannah watched him briefly. He glanced at her, then turned back to the patient. "Tell your son to keep coming," he said gently. "Even if you can't pay, we don't turn people away. We'll find a solution." When they finished, Savannah stepped closer. "Are you the doctor?" "I'm Elijah Vance," he replied. "Do you need medical help?" "No. I came to volunteer. I have experience in organization and management. Inventory, donations, coordination, anything useful." Elijah studied her quietly. There was certainty in her voice that didn't match the story of a woman who had lost everything. He didn't question it. He held out his hand. "Welcome, Maya." This place needs hands more than answers. And that was how it started. Over the following days, Savannah learned to fold stained sheets, sort boxes of expired supplies, and accept small donations that felt like miracles. No one asked about her past. What mattered was what she did now. At the clinic, she met Lena. She was 8 years old, with dull hair and large dark eyes that seemed too old for her face. She sat on the exam table, leaning against an elderly woman with a kind expression. "Miss Della," the woman said softly, "she hasn't eaten in 3 days. She gets fever at night, and her skin's turning pale." Elijah examined the girl, ordered tests, then stepped into the hallway and leaned against the wall. His face was tight with worry. "What is it?" Savannah asked. "I suspect leukemia," he said quietly. "But we need lab work. And that costs money." Savannah looked through the window. Lena was whispering to a doll missing one arm, as if telling it secrets only it could keep. When Elijah stepped away, Miss Della approached Savannah. "You're not from here," she said gently. "Your hands are clean. Your nails are neat. Your back is straight. Life here usually bends us." Savannah stayed silent. "Don't worry," the woman continued. "I had my secrets once too. I'm not judging. I'm just saying, when a woman hides something, she must choose carefully who she lets see her. Some eyes only look at flesh. Others look for the soul." She nodded toward Elijah. "He's the second kind." Savannah nodded, her throat tight. 2 weeks passed. Savannah became part of the clinic, not because of what she knew, but because of what she gave. Time. Listening. Presence. She cleaned, assisted, carried boxes. At night, she wrote in her notebook the same sentence again and again. "I never had time for the poor until I became one of them." One morning, while organizing files in the small office, the phone rang. Elijah answered casually, until his expression changed. "Sterling," he said. "Are you sure? And the file still exists?" Savannah dropped a box. Elijah looked at her, noticing the tremble. "You okay?" "Yeah," she said quickly. "Just dizzy." He ended the call without explanation and stepped outside to smoke. Savannah's heart raced. Sterling. The name hit her like a gunshot, echoing everything she wanted buried. Later, she found Elijah sitting alone. "Can I ask what that call was about?" He hesitated. "An old patient. A case I thought was finished. They mentioned a name I haven't heard in years." Sterling. A chill ran through her. "Do you know him?" Elijah asked. She lied, as she had learned to do in order to survive. He didn't press, but his eyes lingered, as if he were beginning to see a pattern. That night, Savannah didn't sleep. She sat on the bed, the backpack open, the photograph in her hand, the notebook heavy with words. She was no longer Savannah, but Maya Solar was starting to crack too. In this world of borrowed names and hidden truths, she didn't know how long she could hold the life she was building. Some wounds scar. Others steal your breath. And the name Sterling belonged to the second kind. The question wasn't if Marcus would find her. It was whether, when he did, she would be strong enough to face him, or if she would fall back into the invisible prison she had fought so hard to escape. Savannah stared at herself in the cracked mirror of the shared bathroom as cold, murky water ran over her face. The stained tiles reflected a woman she barely recognized. Maya Solar. The name had become armor. She wore it more easily now, though deep inside, something still trembled. Weeks passed slowly, yet something inside her began to shift. The simple routine, the honest human contact, the absence of masks and appearances, it all started reshaping her heart the way fire reshapes metal. She no longer thought of Marcus all the time. She no longer replayed his cruel words like a blade lodged in her memory. Her thoughts moved elsewhere now. To Lena's laughter. To the constant tiredness in Elijah's eyes. To Miss Della's sharp, knowing gaze. And to an idea that quietly took root, building something new from the wreckage, not for herself, but for other women who had been used, manipulated, and silenced just like her. Lena became her center of gravity. The child clung to her with pure trust, as if she had been waiting for her all along. They played with rag dolls, invented ridiculous stories, and shared silences that spoke louder than words. Savannah didn't need to be a biological mother to recognize that bond. Deep down, she knew this was the love life had denied her again and again. "Have you ever felt invisible too?" Lena asked one morning as they drew shapes on the floor with colored chalk. "Yes," Savannah answered without hesitation. "Many times." "Then we're the same," Lena said seriously. "When people are scared, they look away. And then you don't exist anymore." Savannah felt her throat tighten. She thought of how many times she herself had looked away, shielded by luxury, tinted windows, and appearances. How often she had chosen not to see suffering from the safety of her armored life. That guilt stayed with her, quiet and constant. One hot afternoon, music filled the neighborhood. A community fair was organized to raise funds, something Elijah had suggested just to give people a break. But Savannah took control. She convinced the women to bake sweets, create crafts, knit clothes. She organized permits, schedules, and spaces. Within days, she had become a key figure. "I don't know who you were before, Maya," Miss Della said while they sliced bread together. "But who you are now is good for this place." Savannah smiled. She had stopped correcting people when they called her Maya. It was no longer just a cover. It was becoming a version of herself she wanted to exist. In the middle of this quiet rebirth, a memory surfaced that turned her stomach. Elijah was talking to a nurse about an old file. Savannah stood behind a curtain when she heard a name. "Evelyn Sterling," Elijah said. "She was my private patient. I was fired years ago for refusing to hide illegal prescriptions they were giving addicted patients. Her son, Marcus, the politician, threatened to ruin me if I spoke." Savannah froze. Their lives had crossed long before they ever met. The same name. The same corruption. The circle was tightening, either by coincidence or by something crueler than chance. That night, after the fair ended, Savannah climbed onto the roof of her building. She stared at the stars and finally let herself cry. Not from sadness, but from a sharp mix of gratitude and pain. She was alive. She was free. And still, some shadows refused to disappear. Miles away, Marcus Sterling hurled his glass of scotch against his office wall. Crystal shattered. No one dared react. His campaign was collapsing. Donors were pulling out. The press was circling. The sale of the mansion had drawn attention, and Savannah's disappearance had turned into a public scandal. "Find her," he ordered the private investigator he'd hired. "I don't care how. I need her back before everything sinks." The man, a former soldier with tired eyes, nodded without emotion. He already had leads. Bank trails. Phone data. Blurry security footage. It was only a matter of time. Meanwhile, Savannah visited an abandoned warehouse on the edge of the neighborhood. No one followed her. No one suspected she had already purchased it under a new identity. Her vision was clear, a foundation for women who had survived abuse. A real shelter. Counselors. Food. Housing. Legal help. A place where no one would have to lie about their name to start over. She wrote everything down in a thick notebook: needs, suppliers, funding plans. Elijah helped without asking much. He no longer looked at her with doubt, but with something closer to respect. Still, sadness lingered in his eyes. "I lost my wife to pneumonia," he told her one night. "Wrong diagnosis. Private care killed her. Expensive hospitals make mistakes too, they just hide them better." Savannah listened. She understood. He, too, had been broken by a corrupt system. At the fair, Lena sold handmade string bracelets. Her smile shone brighter than the streetlights. She ran from stall to stall, full of life. Miss Della watched her with tired but joyful eyes. Then everything shattered. Lena suddenly collapsed. Her body trembled, then went still. Blood ran from her nose. Silence fell hard. Elijah rushed forward, lifting her and shouting orders. Savannah followed, barely aware of her own legs. At the clinic, they worked quickly, 4 lines, oxygen, samples. Then the words fell like ice. The leukemia has advanced, Elijah said, his voice breaking. We don't have the resources to treat her here. Savannah clenched her fists. She would not stand by. Not now. Not with the child who had given her back her soul. That night, while Lena slept feverish, Savannah opened her backpack. She pulled out the last thing she had hidden, a single piece of jewelry she had never sold. Her grandmother's sapphire ring, worth more than the entire neighborhood. She closed her hand around it and went into the city. The next morning, she returned with a sealed envelope and a check enough to begin treatment. No one asked how she got it. No one had the right. But Elijah looked at her differently now, not with suspicion, but with certainty. You didn't come here to hide, he said quietly. You came to rebuild yourself. And you are. Even if you're still breathing through lies. Savannah looked down. She wanted to tell him everything, her real name, her past, her truth. But she didn't. Not yet. From her bed, Lena smiled weakly. Don't leave me. Never, Savannah said, taking her hand. Time moved forward. Marcus kept searching. But Savannah was no longer the woman who stayed silent when she was humiliated. She fought now, even while fear still lived behind her smiles. Because lies, when held too long, begin to breathe. And hers were alive. The question was how long she could control them. Because when a lie learns to breathe, it can also learn to destroy. Savannah woke before sunrise, as she had almost every day since becoming Maya Solar. The fan rattled endlessly. The damp walls looked grayer than usual. She squeezed her eyes shut, delaying reality for just a moment. Lena was still hospitalized. The medication barely slowed the disease. Every minute was a battle. Every smile from the girl was a fragile shield against despair. And Savannah knew the truth. The money she had secured was only the beginning. The treatment would be long, brutal, and expensive, not just in money, but in spirit. At the clinic, Elijah began watching her more carefully. The way she moved. The pauses in her silence. The precise way she avoided speaking about herself. What he felt was no longer just admiration. Something deeper stirred, an instinct, as if he were walking through a place he somehow recognized, but with all the names scratched out. He was starting to believe that the story she told was edited, trimmed, carefully controlled. That beneath her calm sadness, there was far more than she allowed anyone to see. That morning, as they checked the medicine inventory in the small, improvised pharmacy, Elijah made a comment that wasn't accidental. Maya, he said casually, did you ever live abroad? You have an accent. Neutral. Educated. It's not common around here. She froze for half a second, swallowed, and answered quickly. I studied in Europe for a few years. Then I worked in D.C. That's probably why. Elijah nodded and said nothing more, but the doubt in his eyes deepened. Hours later, Savannah went to the abandoned warehouse where she had been planning the foundation. She sat on a broken crate amid dust and silence and opened her notebook. She wrote just one line. Fear is a cage with open doors. She closed the notebook and took a deep breath. That was when she heard footsteps. She turned to see Miss Della standing there, a bag of bread in one hand, sharp awareness in her eyes. I looked for you at the clinic, she said plainly. Lena asked about you. Savannah stood, brushing dust from her palms. I just came to write a few things down. I need to get this place running before everything falls apart. Miss Della set the bread down. You're not running from fraud or financial ruin. I knew that from the first day. Not because of what you say, but because of what you don't. She stepped closer. You don't run from love, dear. You only run from fear. And you, who are you afraid of? The question lingered like smoke. Savannah wanted to answer, but the weight inside her had no language. She managed only one word, her voice breaking. Myself. Miss Della nodded. She didn't need anything more. She touched Savannah's shoulder gently, left the bread behind, and walked away without looking back. In Manhattan, Marcus Sterling stared at his computer, rage barely contained. On the screen was a photograph taken by a volunteer at the South Shore Charity Fair. Women stood laughing around a food stall. And in one corner, blurred but unmistakable, was Savannah. His heart slammed violently. He jumped up, sent his chair crashing backward, and barked an order. Get the car ready. We're going to South Shore. 3 hours later, his black SUV with tinted windows rolled through the dusty streets, foreign and threatening. People watched with suspicion. Some stepped aside. Others pretended not to notice. Savannah was returning from buying gauze for the clinic when she saw the car parked outside the entrance. She stopped cold. Her stomach dropped. Her chest tightened. She would recognize that vehicle anywhere, even without lights, even from behind. She didn't think. She didn't hesitate. She turned and walked the other way, not running, but moving with the exact pace of someone escaping while trying not to look like they were. She slipped into one alley, then another, climbed a small rise, and hid behind a broken wall until the engine started and the car disappeared. He hadn't seen her. Marcus hadn't found her, but he was close. Too close. She didn't sleep that night. Fear returned like a disease she thought she'd survived. She wondered how much longer she could keep this fragile life from shattering. At the clinic, Lena waited for her with bright eyes. She held out a bracelet made of red thread. It's so you won't leave, she said. Now you're tied to me. Savannah knelt beside the bed and brushed her forehead. I'm tied to you even without it. Are you sad? A little. Why? Because I don't know how to save my own life. Elijah heard it all from the doorway. Something inside him finally broke. The uncertainty was unbearable. This woman carried wounds that didn't match the story she told. Before dawn, while the clinic slept, Elijah entered the small office and opened his laptop. He didn't know exactly what he was searching for, until he typed the name that had been haunting him. Savannah Rodas. The screen filled instantly. Photos from social events. Magazine covers. News about her disappearance. Articles on a mansion sale. Political scandals. Then an image stopped him cold. The same eyes. The same face. The same quiet smile he had learned to read. Maya Solar didn't exist. She was a mask. A lie. But everything she had done was real. The care. The devotion. The lives she had helped. This woman, shattered by her past, had saved others, and rebuilt herself. Savannah Rodas. The vanished wife of the man who had fired him, threatened him, destroyed his career. The circle had closed. Elijah leaned back and shut his eyes. Knowing meant responsibility. And he would not look away again. He didn't sleep at all. By morning, Savannah's image burned into his mind. Maya Solar was a name, nothing more. He had seen how she healed others while carrying unbearable pain herself. Confronting her would change everything, but silence would be its own betrayal. He found her sitting on the clinic steps, notebook in her hands. She wasn't writing. Just holding it, as if it kept her upright. We need to talk, he said. She looked up. There was no surprise in her eyes. Yes, she said softly, closing the notebook. It's time. They went to the warehouse, the empty space slowly turning into something alive. Elijah watched her carefully. Why did you lie? He asked. Savannah leaned against the wall. Her voice was quiet, steady. Because if I told the truth, they would hunt me. He would find me. And they would use me all over again. And I no longer had the strength to remain a beautiful object locked inside a glass case. Savannah Rhodes, Elijah whispered, as if even saying her name hurt his mouth. Wife of Marcus Sterling. Heiress to one of the largest fortunes in the country. Disappeared. Turned into a national mystery. Turned into a broken woman. That part never made the headlines. Elijah lowered his head. Savannah stepped closer, looking straight into his eyes. I didn't lie to play games, she said softly. I didn't disappear to manipulate anyone. I just wanted a life that didn't hurt. And did you find it? He asked. Savannah smiled, a sad, tired smile. Sometimes. When Lena laughs. When you talk to me without expecting anything. When I clean wounds and no cameras are watching. Elijah listened. He wasn't judging her anymore. There was something heavier inside him now. You're not a coward, he finally said. You were brave enough to leave. But now you need to be brave enough to come back. Come back to what? To saying your name out loud. To facing them. To taking back what's yours. Because if you don't, they will. And they'll take everything again, just like they always have. Savannah stared at him for a long time. Something inside her chest cracked open. Meanwhile, in Washington, the media exploded. An anonymous report leaked from the prosecutor's office. Documents. Audio recordings. Financial trails. All pointing to Marcus Sterling and his mother, Evelyn, money laundering, misuse of public funds, bribed judges. Marcus screamed into the phone at his lawyers. Evelyn never left her room. Not out of shame, out of fear. That same morning, an envelope had been slipped under her door. No return address. Inside was a copy of an altered birth certificate and a short note. The truth can't be erased. She didn't need anything else. The past she had buried in silence was coming back to collect its debt. Desperate, she did something she hadn't done in years. She called Elijah. He received the call at the clinic. Her voice barely sounded like hers. Elijah. I need to talk to you. Only you. He hesitated, then agreed. They met at a discreet hotel, far from cameras. Evelyn looked older, visibly broken. No jewelry. No makeup. Only dark circles, trembling hands, and fear written all over her. I'm not here to justify myself, she said without meeting his eyes. I know what I did. But you need to know something. Marcus is not my son. Elijah froze. What are you saying? My husband and I could never have children. When I was 18, I was assaulted. I hid it. I pretended the child was mine. I raised him as if I didn't remember how he came into this world. The air felt thick. And you never told him? Never. Until now. Because he is becoming that man. And I can't allow it. Silence filled the room. Then Evelyn pulled out a small box. Inside were photographs, documents, and a sealed envelope. Lena, she said quietly. That girl. What is her mother's name? She died during childbirth. She isn't in official records. Evelyn swallowed. Look closely. That girl could be his granddaughter. I don't have certainty. But there are dates. Details. Too many coincidences. Elijah left that place feeling like he was carrying a dead body. He didn't yet understand how the pieces fit together, but he knew the truth was closer than he wanted to admit. That night, Savannah was waiting at the warehouse, cleaning, organizing, trying to distract herself. The moment she saw Elijah's face, she knew. What happened? He told her everything, about Evelyn, about Marcus, about Lena. Savannah didn't speak at first. She walked to the window and stared outside. I have something to tell you too, she said. Elijah swallowed hard. I'm sick, she continued. ALS. I was diagnosed a year ago. That's why I left. I didn't want to die surrounded by people who only cared about my inheritance. He had no words. I may have a few years left, she said. Maybe months, if I'm lucky. But I want that time to mean something. It will, Elijah said, his eyes wet. We'll build that foundation. We'll leave something that lasts, even if you're not here. She hugged him then. For the first time without fear. As if holding him could anchor her to a world her body was slowly letting go of. Back in her room, Savannah found an envelope with her name written in cursive. She knew the handwriting before opening it. It was from her mother. Savannah. If you're reading this, it means I'm gone. I don't know how much damage I did to you. I only know there were years when I hated you, because you were everything I could never be. Because your father loved you more. Because you shone without trying, and I was just a gray woman trapped inside a marble house. Forgive me for being cruel. For not protecting you. For not telling you that you deserved better than a husband who only wanted your name. I knew it from the first day. I stayed silent, as I always did. This isn't an excuse. It's a confession. Don't let my bitterness live inside you. Be free. Be strong. And when you can't go on anymore, don't hide it. Let yourself be loved. Supported. Saved. Because even if you never said it, you deserved that too. Savannah broke down completely. The kind of sobs that shake the soul. The kind that finally release years of invisible chains. The foundation wasn't finished yet. Marcus was still searching for her. The diagnosis still lived inside her body. But that night, she slept without fear. The truth hurts, but it also frees. And she had no room left for lies. She only wanted to build something before her body failed her. And she would do it with Elijah. With Lena. With truth as her only inheritance. The warehouse was completed 2 weeks early. The neighborhood worked as if it had always belonged to them. Men who could barely read mixed cement with surgical precision. Women painted walls like they were washing old wounds. Every brick carried a story. The Maya Solar Foundation opened without press, without cameras, without speeches. Only the people who mattered were there. Lena, her hair thin from chemotherapy, held the scissors. Elijah held Savannah's hand as she took a deep breath, each inhale an act of resistance against death. Weeks earlier, Savannah had signed everything over. Accounts. Assets. Shares. Not a jewel, not a property remained under her name. Everything that once symbolized oppression would now become salvation. Days later, Evelyn appeared quietly in the hallway. She sat by Lena's bed, stroked her hand, whispered words meant more for herself than the child. When she left, Savannah was waiting. I knew you'd come, Savannah said. I'm not here to justify myself, Evelyn replied. I came to ask forgiveness, not for Marcus. For myself. Savannah studied her. I watched you disappear for years, Evelyn said. You became so perfect that no one could see you. Invisible, just like I was my entire life. I hated you because you were my mirror. Savannah stepped closer. I hear you, she said calmly. I don't forgive what you did to me. I forgive what you did to yourself. Evelyn finally cried. On television, Marcus was no longer a politician, he was a suspect. Corruption. Money laundering. Influence networks. He was expelled. His smile replaced by scandal. As a last move, he appeared at the foundation. Savannah watched from the second floor. No fear. No anger. Only a cold, sad compassion. I didn't come to fight, Marcus said. I came to make a deal. There are no deals with you, she replied. I have documents. I could destroy you. I already took everything, Savannah said softly. Not money. Dignity. She stepped closer. You can keep your possessions. What you'll never have is peace. Marcus stepped back. the truth hit harder than any threat. "And tell your mother that I hurt her," Savannah said quietly. "And the girl doesn't need to know who her grandfather was. She already has enough love. She doesn't need yours." Before Marcus could respond, Savannah reached into her purse and handed him an envelope. "If this is the last thing you ever receive from me," she said. Marcus walked away without opening it. Later, alone in his empty apartment, he finally read the letter. "Power without love is empty. Money without a soul is death. You killed me many times while I was alive, but I resurrected, and you are still buried inside your own ego. We are no longer enemies. We are nothing. Learn to be alone. Maybe then you'll begin to find yourself." That same night, Elijah and Savannah stayed together. It wasn't a night of passion. It was a night of truth. They lay in the same bed, listening to each other breathe, like two castaways holding on in the middle of the ocean. "Are you afraid?" he asked. "I have peace," she answered. "It's not the absence of fear, but it's enough. I love you." She didn't reply with words. She took his hand and placed it over her heart. The next morning, Elijah went out to get coffee. When he returned, he found her asleep. She was smiling. But she wasn't breathing. He walked over, touched her gently, and knew. She was gone. He didn't scream. He didn't cry right away. He simply sat beside her, holding her hand, until the sun fully rose. On the table were envelopes with handwritten names. One for Elijah. One for Lena. One for Miss Della. One for Evelyn. Elijah opened his. "Don't cry for what wasn't. Be grateful for what was. I leave the life I dreamed of in your hands. Never let anyone dim your light, you made me shine even in the darkness." Lena's letter read. "You taught me that a smile can heal more than medicine. Promise me you will write your story. The world needs to know a little girl who defeated fear." The Maya Solar Foundation remained standing. It grew. It healed. It embraced. And on one of its main walls, a mural of Savannah's smiling face reminded everyone that some women, even when they die, never truly leave. Because what changes the world isn't money, it's truth, and the love built from it. Elijah didn't know how long he stayed there. An hour. Maybe 2. Time stopped in that simple room where she had chosen to leave quietly, without drama, without noise, without fear. She left the way she had lived her last months, in silence, but leaving permanent footprints. There was no marble cemetery. No grand funeral. No speeches from politicians. Her body was cremated, just as she wished. Her ashes were scattered in the garden of the Maya Solar Foundation, beneath a young almond tree that Lena promised to water every morning. The news spread quickly through the neighborhood. Women cried at the gates. Children fell silent. Lena didn't speak for days. Elijah moved on autopilot. But he didn't stop. Life had to continue. And he promised himself her story would never be buried in that white room. Weeks later, Lena found something else. Inside one of Savannah's desk drawers, she discovered a carefully bound manuscript written in the same firm handwriting Savannah used at the clinic. The title read, "My husband said I disgusted him." The prologue began. "This is not the story of a woman abandoned, but of a woman who learned to abandon herself to please the world, and one day woke up." Elijah read it in one night. When he finished, he knew exactly what he had to do. Months later, the book was published by an independent press. No one expected what happened next. It went viral. First on social media, then everywhere else. Women bought it quietly. Passed it on with tears. Whispered about it in meetings. Studied it in universities. Savannah's story wasn't just about a betrayed wife. It was about every woman who had ever felt invisible. In interviews, Elijah spoke only about the foundation. He never took a single cent from the book. Every dollar went toward opening new Maya Solar Foundation centers. The message was clear. No woman should have to disappear to live again. Lena named the second center. She called it the House of the Reborn. It was small. Simple. Alive. She painted a wall herself with Savannah's words. Promise me you will write your story. And she did. Lena wrote a children's book about a little girl who defeated the monster of gray days with a smile and a red bracelet. She attended book fairs. Gave interviews. She spoke of Savannah as if she were still alive. For her, she was. Elijah continued as the foundation's medical director. Some days, the weight of Savannah's absence crushed him. But all he had to do was step into the garden, see women laughing, children running, volunteers arriving, to know Savannah had won. Her love hadn't died. Her legacy wasn't ash. It was root. He wore a locket around his neck. Inside was a lock of her hair and a note. When you doubt yourself, touch this. This is the part of me that will never leave. He only opened it on nights when the silence hurt too much. Evelyn changed too. At first, no one believed it, not even her. She began volunteering anonymously at shelters for abused women. She donated everything she owned to the Maya Solar Foundation. Then she disappeared from public life. Some said she entered a convent. Others said she moved abroad. The truth was simpler. Her name stopped meaning power and became a quiet shadow that no longer tried to control anything. Marcus, meanwhile, lost everything. Money. Reputation. Allies. He tried to publish a memoir. No one bought it. He faded into obscurity, as men who build empires on lies always do. Once, Elijah saw him alone at a city cafe, unshaven, lost. He didn't approach. He just remembered Savannah's words. We are no longer enemies. We are nothing. A year after her death, the foundation held a ceremony in Savannah's honor. Women came from everywhere, those who had escaped violence, survived trafficking, healed in silence. They spoke openly. Without shame. Without fear. At the end, one woman said into the microphone, I was invisible until I read her story. Savannah didn't die. She woke up inside me. Elijah closed his eyes and smiled. As they left, Lena took his hand. Do you think she sees us? I'm sure, he said. She's in you. In me. In all of us. I dream about her sometimes. What does she say? To keep writing. Because words heal too. And Lena wrote. A lot.